Truth Unveiled here, and today we're going to be continuing with our True Location series. Today we're going to be taking an extensive look at ancient Babylon, and we're going to be showing you the truth about the true scriptural ancient Babylon and exposing the fake one. Now, first, we'll be taking a look at scripture and going over the scriptural, academic, and then the prophetic sources and linguistic sources to see if we have a match, and then focusing in on the historical sources so we can get a better geographical idea and location of the true scriptural ancient Babylon. Now, first, we're going to go over a brief recap of all the maps of Babylon just so you can have an idea of exactly the location and pinpoint it. Now, we've gone over this before in our previous videos, but I will link these maps in the description box below so you can be able to see them on your own time. Now, this map comes from cartographer Lorenz Fries, and this was all the way from 1525, so nearly 500 years ago. And you see Babylon located where? Near Egypt, Sudan, near the Nile River. And we've gone over this before with Meroe, and we have right there that it's right nearby, and we're going to be talking more about that and why that's so significant. But also pay careful attention to the spelling of this, because we're going to be going over that in just a moment to come. Now, this next map is from 1545 that comes from Sebastian Münster, and you're going to see it right here in just a moment to come. Now, this is the 1545 map. Now, as you can see right here, here is Babylon, and we're going to go over why you see Babylon appear towards the Egypt region and then towards down here in present-day so-called Sudan. We're going to be talking more about that later on in the video. Now, this is a map from 1552, and as you can see, it's over 450 years old. Now, it depicts Babylon up here towards Memphis in the Cairo region, and then right here we have Ammon, scriptural Ammon, depicted right here in the present-day Libya region. Again, we have Babylon with Ammon depicted within the same regions, because here's Libya right here, and there's Ammon, and then there's Babylon over there towards the Nile River. And we talked about that significance, why it's so important for the real scriptural Babylon to be located on the Nile. This map comes from 1667, which is well over 300 years old. Here's an enlarged map of Babylon. As you can see, this comes from 1692, and it's shown near Ramses, Memphis, Sukkoth in Egypt, along with Alexandria, again along the Nile River right here. And what this is really depicting is the fortress of Babylon. And like I said, later on in the video, we'll be covering that so you can have a better idea and see exactly what it's talking about. Now, this is Babylon depicted as of 1706, so once again, well over 300 years ago, and it's shown where? Near Meroe, Sudan. And we're going to be taking a look at that region of the so-called Sudan pyramids, because here's Babylon located right here, right along the Nile River in this map published as of 1706. This map was drawn in 1730, and as you can see right here, it's a little bit easier to see. Here is the land of Africa, Libya interior, as we've gone over that, as it was known back then, and so-called Nubia right here. Now, when you take a look, once again, we have the Nile River branching off, so this part branching off towards Ethiopia and continuing what they call southward. Here we see Babylon once again near Meroe, Sudan. Again, there is our marker point along with the Nile River over here. Now, upon further research, we've also even shown you even more maps and have even included bonus maps of Babylon, like this one from 1597. So once again, well over 400 years. And you see right there, Babylon right here along the Nile River. And then this map that was published within Oxford from 1712, so once again, over 300 years ago, you see Babylon right there along in Egypt, along the Nile River once again, and you see it's along Egypt within the exact same region. And then over here we have Ammon once again, as we've gone over Ammon right there, the real scriptural Ammon. Now, later on in the video, we'll go over a map from 1592 that gives us a hint about the Tower of Babel, but this is a map from 1720 that also shows Babylon near Memphis. And again, this is depicting the fortress of Babylon, but this just gives you a better idea of where ancient Babylon is really truly depicted. Now we're going to get some scriptural references and some historical references along with academic references to see and back this up, to see if this is a scriptural match or if that one in Iraq is a scriptural match. Now remember I told you to keep this spelling in mind though. This is the map from 1525. And as you can see, Babylon is depicted right here near Meroe once again. And then it depicts Media too, the scriptural Media also that's depicted right here that's nearby in a map that's nearly 500 years old. But you'll probably notice that the spelling is a little bit different. Why is that so important? Because when you take a look at the actual spelling in other languages, you'll start to find a match. Very interesting and suspicious indeed. What am I talking about? Well, if you go right here to Babylon, according to Wikipedia, and if you go to the alternative names, just like what we covered when it came to Assyria and when it came to Agade, and we've gone over that. Remember the Akkadian language? You see how it's spelled Babelim? Babelim? Well, isn't that just very interesting how we saw a similar spelling to that in the 1525 map? The only difference was there was an E there instead of an I. Very interesting and suspicious indeed. Not only that, but also when you take a look at the Aramaic, you get Babel spelled with an I right there. And then when you take a look at the Elamite, it's Babeli. Well, that's what we saw in the ancient map too, very similar to that. Here is another linguistic and academic source of this. This comes from the Cambridge Ancient History, Volume 1, page 150, where it says the evidence of language. And it says right here, sometimes there can be reasonable doubt as to whether the Sumerian or Semitic name is older. It is held by some that Babelim, which is Yahudith or Hebrew Babal and Greek Babylon, was originally Sumerian. And you can see right here, Babelim. That's what I wanted to show you, is the linguistic side of this. Babelim, Babelim. Because we read something similar to that right here in the map from 1525. Babelim right there. You see that? You see the linguistic match right there? It looks like a match to me. Now here we are right here. Now this is the Babylon that they tell us, and this is the one that they've spoon-fed us for how many years, if not hundreds of years, if not thousands of years. This is the one they want us to believe. This is the one that we've been traditionally taught is the traditional Babylon, according to them, according to historians, and according to the liars themselves. Why are they lying? Because it's right south of Baghdad, which is the capital of Iraq, and so it's right here in this region within Hilla, right here. Now you're probably wondering, why did I leave this highlighted when it comes to the estimated population? Because if you also search Hilla, Iraq right here, you'll see that what? Hilla, also spelled Hilla, is a city in central Iraq on the Hilla branch of what they call the Euphrates River, even though we know the truth about that. About 100 kilometers south of Baghdad, they say that the population is estimated at a little over 364,000 as of 1998 and is the capital of the Babylon province and is located adjacent to the ancient city of Babylon, close to the ancient cities of Borsippa and Kish, according to them, according to what we're traditionally taught, right? And the population is 1.73 million. Why did I leave all of that highlighted? Because now we're going to test that with the word of our creator Yahuwah and see if we get a match. Because if we take a look at Yarmayahu, Jeremiah 51 verse 37, this is what it says. And Babal shall become a heap, a habitation of jackals, an astonishment and a hissing without inhabitant. So according to scripture itself, it says that the real scriptural Babylon has what? No inhabitants there. Just like with the real true location of Yerushalayim or Jerusalem, what? No inhabitant. But according to this, according to our enemies themselves, this has a population of well over 1 million. Wow, that's contrary to his word. So who's the liar then? And while the enemy continues to find more reasons to try and debunk all this, well, we're going to keep moving forward and stand on his word. Because why is it important for scriptural Babylon to be on the Nile somewhere? And more importantly, why is it important for you not to be in denial? Now, again, here's a brief recap of everything we pretty much gone over before, but it's important to get an understanding and foundation of this. Now, again, here's Brashith, Genesis 10 through 11 concerning Nimrod. And the beginning of his reign was where? Babal and Iraq and Akkad and Kalna. And in our Assyria video, we've covered Akkad extensively. Where? In the land of Shinar, in the land of Shinar? And again, we've already gone over the importance too of Shinar and why that's so important, because if we know the location of Shinar, then we know the location of Babylon also. Again, we've also gone over and told you about the linguistic significance of all of this, how Shinar in the Greek is Sinar and it's spelled like this, and we told you why that's so important. And once again, we'll show you just for reference, just so that you're able to see that Shinar right here in the Septuagint or in the Greek, Sinar is spelled like this, Sennaar. Because is there a Sinar Shinar region in Africa near scriptural Babylon? Do we have a scriptural match? Why, yes, we do. The exact same spelling of Shinar or Sinar in the Septuagint in the Greek. We see that where? In present-day Sudan, around the exact same region as we saw Babylon depicted in the maps from the 1500s. In the exact same region along the Nile River, we have a scriptural match right here. And this map comes all the way from 1806, well over 200 years ago. And notice how it's on this map twice. And once again, it's in a region that's located along the Nile. So we know we have Sudan as one of the regions for the scriptural Babylon. Now here's just a few more maps to show. Now what's also interesting about this region is that it's also where near desert areas, deserted, no inhabitants. All right, so we see again Sinar Shinar from a map from 1820, so almost 200 years ago within the same region. Now that same 1820 map, if you go a little bit more east along the Nile River, there's Sinar or Shinar, which is in Sudan, and you have over here towards Ethiopia, you have the Tigray or the Tigris River. Could that be referring to and talking about the Tigris? By the way, Sinar is still a town to this day. Shinar, it's still a town today in Sudan and is from the Sinar Kingdom, as you can see right here in 1750. This was the extent of it. Here is its location in Sudan, in southern Sudan over here. Then we've gone over this map from 1730 that shows not only the Tigray right here along the Nile River, but again, Sinar right there, the land of Shinar, the scriptural Shinar, but also the scriptural Susa or Shushan that's located right here. And we've also talked about and covered how the story of Hadassah, the story of Esther, as it's commonly known, more than likely took place in this region in so-called Sudan. We've also confirmed a few more things with this map from 1730, how this map also shows things like Sinar, Susa right here, as you can see once again along the Nile. So we have the scriptural land of Shinar, the scriptural Susa, and the scriptural Babylon within the same region, the scriptural Tigris region over here in Ethiopia along the Nile River. And by the way, the Nile River is also known as what? The cradle of civilization. Why is that the case? Not only that, but if you go a little bit more westward towards Chad or present day Chad today, you have Median or Media, just like what we saw in the 1525 map. Very interesting and suspicious indeed. Not to mention that the desert of Seth is nearby too, which is also scriptural. And later on, when we go over more of the Tower of Babel, we'll also be talking about this more too, Babal Mandel, because you see right here, it's over here towards this region, towards Arabia and Africa, towards present-day Djibouti and Eritrea, and you see right here Susa, Shinar over here, Babylon over here, extending all the way over there with the Tower of Babel taking place in this region. But like I said, we'll be going over that later on in the video to come. Now, with scriptural, academic, historic, and linguistic sources, we're now able to pinpoint exactly where scriptural Babylon is and exactly have an idea of where it is according to the ancient maps and everything we just looked at and everything we just read. Now, there's a reason I'm here on Google Maps. I'm here showing you so you can get a better idea of Sinar, which we know is the land of Shinar, with Meroe, Sudan, which is the ancient pyramids, which we're going to be taking a look at. And again, the question that we're keeping in mind is that could these ancient pyramids be the ancient remains of ancient Babylon? So now we're going to zoom in a little bit more just so that you can have a better idea. Once again, we're in Sudan itself, and you can see right here, this is Meroe, or the pyramids of Meroe, which we're going to be going over along with Shindi nearby. That also has some pyramids of Meroe also in that region. We're not going to cover all of it in this video today, but I will take you to those ancient pyramids so you can take a look at them. Then you have Khartoum Omdurman right here, which is the capital region of Sudan today, as it's commonly known, and then you have Sinar right here. Now, once again, pay careful attention how this region is located where? Along the Nile River. It's so important that it be located along the Nile, and you're going to see why in a moment, but here is Sinar right there in so-called Sudan, as we just saw on the maps. And then again, we're going to zoom out and then go a little bit more northward, as it's commonly known, to get to ancient Meroe right here in Kabushia and a few other places. Note the Ya right there along the Nile River, as you see right here. It would only make sense that according to scripture that Babylon would flourish along this river, just like ancient Egypt and a few other ancient civilizations. And so then here's Kassala right here. We're going to be talking about that town and its significance in a moment to come. But it's very important that this town be on the Nile River. And also what they tell us and the lies that they tell us that, oh, this region is ancient Nubia and oh, those are Nubian kings and stuff like that. How do we know that they're not actually descendants of ancient Babylon? Because they tell us that this is the ancient kingdom of Cush, but we know Cush was what? One of the children of Ham, or along the line, the descendants of Ham. Just like Nimrod, which is where Babylon came to be. Now, what's also interesting about all of this is that on ancient maps, you saw Babylon northward towards Egypt, and what this is referring to is the Babylon fortress, which was an ancient fortress in the Nile Delta located in the area known today as Coptic Cairo. So we see that it's right here, located within this region. Here are the ruins and the remains of it right there, and we've also gone over the word Mesopotamia in our video covering Assyria. If you have not seen ancient Assyria, please do in the description box below, because what you'll see is that what? Mesopotamia is part of the deception. It's part of the delusion, because ancient text and ancient scriptures back then will let you know that it was never called Mesopotamia, that it was called Aram Naharaim, which means the area of the two rivers. Which two rivers is it talking about? Could it be talking about and referring to the two rivers of the Nile? Now, this website is from Coptic Cairo, and the reason I'm here is because it gives more info about the Babylon fortress, as you can see right here, and it gives you a picture of the ruins right here. And if you would like to learn more about the history of it, you can do so right here. I'll link it in the description box below. But again, an ancient fortress of Babylon located in present-day so-called Egypt. We're going to get to the fun part and explore more of the actual pyramids in Sudan, because in the same region that we just shown you on maps in Meroe and everything, you'll see that there is what? Sudan's forgotten pyramids, and it's said to be up to 200 pyramids within these regions. Now again, the question that we're going to be thinking about today is, could these pyramids be in fact the remains of ancient Babylon? We'll also be talking a little bit more about Sudan itself, because why in the world are they constantly trying to demonize Sudan any single way, shape, and form that they can in Western media? You're going to find out why, just like with Niger and Nigeria, with all the wars going on over there. There's obviously a reason for it, and then the Darfur region too. But as you see right here, it says in Sudan's Nile Valley, there is a series of ancient tombs and pyramids that are rarely visited by tourists. Why is that the case? And if we keep going, you will see that these pyramids date back to the kingdom of Kush, a major power between the 8th century before our Messiah and the 4th century AD. Now, again, the question we need to be thinking about really when it says kingdom of Kush, is it actually the kingdom of ancient Babylon? And you see how these wicked translators and everything, and these so-called archaeologists, you see how they twisted and manipulated everything, because when it says Cush, well, we know that Cush was one of the descendants of Ham, which was also Nimrod, which is why Babylon even started and came to be. So again, is this really just code word for the kingdom of Babylon, ancient Babylon, so to speak? But if we keep going, it says tourists wishing to see the pyramids must travel in a jeep and then by camel or on foot to access the remote sites. Well, that's good to know, because what? There's no inhabitants, little to no inhabitants at all, according to scripture. Now, this says, according to UNESCO, the liars themselves, the wide range of architectural forms found at the island of Meroe, which is a semi-desert landscape between the Nile and Atbara rivers, is proof of contact between sub-Saharan Africa and the Mediterranean and Middle Eastern worlds in this period. So even according to the geographers and historians themselves, that this region was very important to world history. Why? Because could it have been ancient Babylon? Now it goes on to say that Meroe is an ancient city that was the capital of we know, the kingdom of Kush, or a so-called Babylon, for several centuries. The pyramids here house the remains of the deceased Kushite rulers. But again, could some of them actually have been Babylonian rulers themselves, or even descendants of the Babylonian rulers during the time of ancient Babylon? Now if we scroll up, we'll actually see the picture right here where it says more than 200 pyramids are believed to be located in Sudan. About 177 are located in the island of Meroe, while the other 74 are in the Nuri region, so in a region that's not too far. And you can see this is how the pyramids look to this day. Here is another picture from the background. As you can see right there, there are some pyramids that are located back there. Here are some ancient remains of these ancient pyramids that's located right here, and they still stand to this day. Here are some more pictures of these ancient pyramids depicting ancient Babylon, at least the region of it. Now it goes on to say that the Sudan pyramids of ancient Babylon are smaller than those in Egypt. And I know I'm adding my own commentary, but it says they are also far less busy, typically receiving about 10 visitors per day. So it's not a lot of travel over here in this region. Why is that the case? Then it goes on to say here's another picture of the pyramids. As you can see up close with the camel, visitors are able to camp at the footsteps of the pyramids overnight, and sometimes they have to. There are no hotels or restaurants nearby, so we see that this is a very, very secluded region. It is very, very arid. It is very, very deserty. Now, another thing to note about this region is right here in the ancient remains of these carvings that's left in this region, because it shows you right here and tells you that stone rams line the entrance to one of the temples right there in Naga or Naka, and we're going to be going over that. Now, yes, it gives homage to a pagan deity, but the reason that's so important is why? Because it proves what? Idol worship that went on in this region. Well, just like we know with scripture, according to ancient Babylon, and those ancient nations, what? They partook in idolatry. So once again, we see another scriptural match. Now take a look at this picture right here, and you start to see these ancient carvings and wall hieroglyphics right here. Now with this one looks very similar to a lion. Why is that so important, as we've gone over before? Because with what? Lions, and we talked about that with lions being in scripture, and when it comes to ancient Babylon, lions were very prevalent in ancient Babylon, but you do not even see lions today in so-called Middle East. So it goes on to say some of the wall carvings are on the Sudanese temples are reminiscent of Egyptian art. Why is that so important? Because we know that Babylon mimicked ancient Egypt back then also. Here are some more pyramids up close that show you the exact same region, where it says the rulers of the Kushite kingdom, aka Babylon, were known as the so-called Black Pharaohs. They were a major political power until the 4th century, according to UNESCO. Now that's interesting, because around that time, a couple of hundred years prior to the 4th century, before our Messiah, and even according to the historians, because they say that this region was very prevalent between the 8th century before our Messiah up until the 4th century. So we know that during that time was what? The time of Nebuchadnezzar, the time of the height of Babylon. So back then it would have been a major political power indeed. Now going on to this one right here, you see the pyramids again. You see the landscape of it and how ancient it looks. But it says the landscape leading up to the UNESCO World Heritage Site is dramatic, with sweeping sand dunes and clear skies. And then right here it says local tour guides are available to take visitors to the sites, but due to the lack of a tourism industry in Sudan, they often do not know much of the local history. Could that be because they're trying to keep people out of these regions any way, shape, or form that they can? Could it be because they don't want you to know that this is actually ancient Babylon? But they'll spoon feed you their lies all day and all night long. Not anymore. Now, just for some more geographical context, here we see Nuri, which is a place in modern Sudan on the southeast side of the Nile that's located about 15 kilometers north of Sanam and 10 kilometers from Jabal Barkal right there. And there's Meroe right there. And here's Nuri up here, as we've talked about, which is what? Home to a lot of these pyramids, because it says the pyramids at Nuri are in general smaller than the Egyptian ones and are today often heavily destroyed, but they are often still contain substantial parts of the funerary equipment of the Kushite or Babylonian rulers who were buried there. Now, of course, they're going to call them Nubian pyramids right here from Nubia, which we're going to go over in just a moment to come, that was centered on Meroe. This gives you another picture of how ancient Meroe looks right here near Shindi, Sudan, approximately 200 kilometers, that's northeast of Khartoum. And as you can see, here are the actual pyramids right there. Again, is this ancient Babylon, all of this region? And notice again that what? That it is without inhabitant, that there is really no one there, that it's all desert built of granite and sandstone. Now, again, this has all been part of an elaborate scheme that we're now exposing, but part of the delusion of all of this is the word Nubia itself, because if you take a look at the linguistic side of it, the name Nubia is derived from that of the Noba people, nomads who settled the area, according to them, in 4th century, following the collapse of the kingdom of Meroe, according to them, which we have just gone over. However, before that, they claimed that it was known as Kush, so they claimed that this area was known as Kush, or in classical Greek usage, included under the name Ethiopia. Now, we've gone over Ethiopia itself and how Ethiopia, once upon a time, was pretty much known as all of Africa. However, if you do more research about Nubia and this region, what you'll start to find out is that what? This is also known by the Romans. The Romans were also the ones who referred to this region as Nubia, and that's how it started to become known as that, split between Egypt and Sudan. And you'll see the Sennar Sultanate, Sennar, the land of Shinar right there. Why is that so important? Because when we look at the kingdom of Kush, you'll see that it's an ancient kingdom where they claim Nubia, but is that really another keyword for Babylon? Kush? Why is that so important to know about Kush? Because when we take a look at Cush in this area, they even claim it, they even tell us that Cush is the brother of Canaan or Canaan, Matsarium, which is commonly known as Egypt today, and Put, and the dad of the scriptural biblical Nimrod mentioned in the Table of Nations in Brashith, Genesis 10, verse 6. But we just looked at the ancient map and we just saw, according to Brashith 10:10, Genesis 10:10, that Nimrod that Babel or Babylon is where? In the land of Shinar. And we saw, according to ancient maps, that Shinar is in Sudan, along with Babylon, with ancient maps in this region too. And they even tell you that the kingdom of Cush is right here within the exact same region. Now, another region that's of important significance is this one right here that's located not too far, but it's an ancient city known as Naka or Nagaa right there, which is a ruined ancient city, ruined, that means no inhabitant of what they call the Cushitic kingdom, but really are they talking about, and is that code word keyword, the Babylonian kingdom of so-called Meroe in modern day Sudan. The ancient city lies about 110 miles or 170 kilometers northeast of Khartoum, which is the capital of Sudan, and about 50 kilometers or 31 miles east of the Nile River. So once again, we see the Nile River right there, which again is very important. And I'm going to enlarge this picture of the Roman kiosk there. Now, what's also very notable about this and interesting is how the site has two notable hot temples, one devoted to an Egyptian deity and another devoted to another deity. Why is that so important? Is because again, it proves idol worship in this region, just like in ancient Babylon. Now, it's interesting how this city is one of the largest ruined sites in the country, and what indicates an important ancient city that once stood in the location. You mean like ancient Babylon? Here is that ancient picture. Once again, you can see the Roman kiosk right there and the ruins of this area right here, as you can see. And again, like we've talked about before, when it comes to the ancient artifacts and stuff, well, we know a lot of them, they're placed in museums now all over the world. But did they get these ancient artifacts from these regions and bring them to their museums and bring them to the fake one in Iraq? This is another picture of an ancient temple, and again, we're going over this for the historic purposes of this and educational purposes, so you can see scriptural Babylon with your own two eyes. Remember those stone rams we showed you earlier? Where here's another picture of it that's depicted right here in Naka, Sudan, right here, as you can see lined up. Another thing that's very interesting and suspicious indeed to note about Naka specifically is a statue of a deity that was found there, that where is now displayed at a museum in Berlin. Why is that so important that this statue was found there in Naka, Sudan? Because the Lion of Babylon, as it's commonly known right here, you see it where? It's an ancient Babylonian symbol, but you also see that it represents that same deity we just looked at. Because by the way, Ishtar and Isis is the exact same thing. It's the exact same deity, and is the exact same deity that Christians worship on Easter, unknowingly, because they're pronounced the exact same thing, but it's the representation of the same thing. Again, another match, and we know that lions are located where? And again, the lies that they will tell you in order to justify the fake region is that, oh, well, the lion's extinct now in so-called fake Israel and in the so-called Middle East, that, oh, the lion's extinct, that's why they're not there anymore. No, that's just a cover up and a lie. That is, of course, being exposed because, again, they want to take your attention away from these regions, away from the African regions of the true scriptural locations, and place your attention on their own lies in order to promote atheism and all their other lies that they've inherited. Now, the following two places was submitted to me actually by a subscriber via email who is actually part Sudanese. which gives us more info and more details about this region, which I found to be very important after doing further research. Now, right here, we told you we would go over more of Kassala, Sudan. Now, this is towards the east of Sudan, right on the border of Eritrea. And we're going to be talking more about Eritrea and its significance when it comes to the Tower of Babel itself, and even possibly the Hanging Gardens of Babylon. Now, you're probably looking at this. The reason that we're here is because you see in the background of this picture these mountains. Why is it that there's little to no information about these mountains? Now, normally they have like Wikipedia articles and stuff on this about this stuff, but really I haven't been able to find much about it in the research that I've been doing and been led on. However, what I wanted to take your focus on is on the Taka Mountains, which is in Kassala, Sudan today. The Taka Mountains. Why is that so important of a region right here, and even for the mountains to look like this? Because does it sound something similar to this, to Jeremiah chapter 51 verse 25, and we're going to go to it in a moment, which actually reads, concerning the prophecy of Babal or Babylon, see, I am against you, O destroying mountain, who destroys the earth. All the earth declares Yahuwah, and I shall stretch out my hand against you, and I shall roll you down from the rocks and make you a burnt mountain. Now here are some more pictures of Kassala, Sudan. This is the ancient region right here. As you can see, this just gives you an idea of how it actually looks in the surroundings area and the environment. Now here is a backdrop of the Taka Mountains within that same region of Kassala, Sudan, and these are how the mountains look. Indeed, they look very intricate compared to other mountains. Here is a close-up of the mountain right here, and this is a picture taken from people who have actually visited the mountains and who actually have seen the mountains and have been to Sudan in order to see them. And another picture of the mountains right here, as you can see in the background of the Kassala, Sudan city. What I'm actually showing you now are travel photos, but here once again we see Kassala, Sudan, and we see how the land actually looks, and we get a better idea of the Taka Mountains nearby and just the region overall. And again, pay careful attention of how barren the region is and how little to no inhabitants whatsoever, a scriptural match. Here is another photo showing those exact same mountains, the Taka Mountains, a little bit up close right here, as you can see, and the surrounding regions and areas that's nearby. Now there are also ancient mosques that are located nearby in this region too, in Kassala, Sudan, near the Taka Mountains. Here is another view right here. As you can see, the Taka Mountains that's located right there with the backdrop of the view of Sudan that's located right there, or even potentially Eritrea nearby. And this is how one of the ancient mosques nearby looks. And again, we're in Kassala, Sudan. And again, back here is the actual Taka Mountains with the actual mosque that's right here. Here is another picture of the Taka Mountains in the background, and you can see how the landscape is very vibrant indeed. And again, how these rocks are very rocky indeed, but I just wanted to give you an idea of how this looks. Again, ancient scriptural Babylon. Now we're going to go over more of the actual Tower of Babel to get a better idea of where that is and where that fits into all of this. Now here is that 1592 map that's over 400 years old that we've gone over before, but this map right here shows you Babal Malak, Babal Mandel, and Medra over here, Media right there. And just for reference, in the Yahudiyat, the Hebrew tongue, Babal Melech means king of Babel, so Babel, and then Malak, which is king, so king of Babal. And again, notice how that was shown within the same region of Sudan towards Ethiopia and Eritrea within that region of Africa. Now, in the Arabic, this region today is known as Bab al-Mandeb. Right here, as you can see, that separates Yemen from Djibouti, Eritrea, or that separates Arabia from Africa in this region right here. And you'll even see it on maps today. Why is this region so important? You may be wondering. We're going to go over it, but here's Kassala right here, which we just went over. And then here we have right here, what? The real Tower of Babel? Now, in Arabic, this actually means the gate of tears, Bab el Mandeb, right here. It means the gate of tears. Why? Now, according to an Arab legend, tons of people drowned in this region due to an earthquake that separated the Horn of Africa from Arabia. Now, do we have a scriptural reference for this? Why, in fact, yes, we do. Yashar, Jasher, the book of Jasher, chapter 9, verse 28. Again, there's a reason they took these books out of the original canon. But it says, "And behold, these ascended, and others descended the whole day. And if a brick should fall from their hands and get broken, they would all weep over it. And if a man fell and died, none of them would look at him." Here's a little bit more scriptural context of Yashar, Jasher 9:37 to 39. "And they ceased building the city and the tower. Therefore he called that place Babal or Babel, for there Yahuwah confounded the language of the whole earth. Behold, it was at the what? East of the land of Shinar." Didn't we just see where Shinar is? Which is where? Sinnar in Sudan. So to the east of that is where? In case you need to see it again, here is Sinar right here, or Susa, Babylon right here, as it's also depicted in other maps right there. And then we saw Babal Malek over here in this region, and to the east of that is what? Babal Mandel, that's right there, east of Shinar, the land of Shinar. Now, verse 38 goes on to read, "And as to the tower which the sons of men built, the earth opened its mouth and swallowed up 1/3 part thereof. And the fire also descended from the Shamayim and burned another third, and the other third is left to this day. And it is of that part which was aloft, and its circumference 3 days' walk. And many of the sons of men died in that tower, a people without number," according to verse 39. So here we have our scriptural reference and location for this too, along with the Arab legend that is a scriptural match for the same region, also with the Tower of Babel being in that region between Africa and Arabia. And then we've gone over this verse too from Azara, Ezra chapter 4, verse 9, that talks about what cities located or places: Tripolis, Persia, Erech, Babylon, and Susa together. Now, once again, we have our Tower of Babel reference and region over here in this region. So towards Djibouti and Eritrea along this region right here. So we know that the Tower of Babel took place in this region somewhere over here. And we know it had to have taken place in this region because we know that this is scriptural Babylon over here in Sudan. And to the east of it, we have the Tower of Babel somewhere. Now, could one potential pinpoint be right here in this place called Adulis or Aduli in ancient Greek, which is an archaeological site in the northern Red Sea of Eritrea, about 30 miles south of Massawa in the Gulf of Zula? And they claim that it's part of the kingdom of Aksum, but could this really be the kingdom of Babylon? You see these ruins right here? Very interesting and suspicious indeed. And what? It's right nearby the area of what? The Tower of Babel. Now here's a little bit more info about the ancient port of Adulis, which is so-called Eritrea today as it's commonly known. Now it says the origin of the name is not well known. However, Pliny, a historian who is believed to be among the first historians to write about Adulis, who misunderstood the place and thought its name to mean founded by escaped Egyptian slaves. Why is that so important? Because could that have been what? During the time of ancient Babylon, could that have been what? Slaves working on the tower and just part of that region and part of the Babylonian kingdom all together? Very interesting and suspicious indeed. Could this potentially be some of the ruins of ancient Babylon? Could this potentially be some of those ruins? Well, It looks like a scriptural match based on the scriptural locations and geography and along with linguistics to go with it. Here is another picture of the ancient ruins and excavations of Adulis, Eritrea right here. And again, could this have potentially been the very region of Babel, ancient Babylon, along with the ancient ruins of the remains of the Tower of Babel? Could this be the actual location pinpointed nearby? Now we see why Eritrea is called Africa's North Korea. Now we see why all of the Chinese and everyone are interested in Africa all of a sudden, places like Zimbabwe and the gold there because of the scriptural gold. Now we see why and understand why all of these other nations are so fascinated and intrigued with Africa. Now we see why the US has a drone base in Agadez or Agades, Niger, which is the scriptural Assyria. Now we see why they go to these places and make up these safari theme parks and stuff, because they're hiding evidence, because they're hiding truth, because they're hiding artifacts. Not anymore, because it says why Eritrea is called Africa's North Korea, because it says Eritrea has had some unhappy claims to fame over the years. Its war of liberation from neighboring Ethiopia, which began in the 1960s and only ended in 1991, was one of Africa's longest running conflicts. Then, as a newly independent country, it fought a war with Ethiopia between 1998 and 2000, one of the bloodiest in the continent's history, which only formally ended the summer of 2018. Could that explain all of the war and genocide in this region too, in Darfur specifically, and why Western media is constantly trying to demonize this region any way, shape, and form, and only make people associate these regions with war and with genocide because they know the truth about them? Why is it that pretty much all of Sudan is under control of the Sudanese government? Because the Sudanese government knows the truth about this region. That's why there's been nothing but genocide in this region, because some of the people might know the truth about this region too, but of course have to be kept quiet about it. Not anymore, because now we're revealing the truth and exposing the lies. And please continue to seek Yahuwah and his true son Yahusha for even more truth. But I wanted to share this video with you that covers more of ancient Babylon, but of course you decide. This is Truth Unveiled here, saying as always, Shalom.